Hello everyone, we're back on Delta Force once again for week 2 of my 4-week challenge. Toward the end of last week, I unlocked a new map, Lyoli Grove, which is what we'll be playing on during this video. At least for part of it anyway, I don't actually know, I'm recording this intro before I've done all the gameplay. But with that out of the way, make sure to give this video a like if you enjoy it, helps out with the algorithm, and let's get into game number 1. For my first match on Lyoli Grove, I spawned at a train station, and the loot present at that train station was interesting. I'm getting apples. I did find some English tea though, which was worth a decent amount. When a train arrived to the station, I figured that other players would be showing up soon to fight for some high-tier loot, so I did what any brave, daring adventurer would do and ran away. Side note, this map has lots of invisible walls, and I hate them. Because my storage was actually pretty full, I decided to head toward an extraction point just a few minutes into the match, but that proved a lot harder than I thought. Rather inconveniently, all the extraction points were on the complete opposite side of the map, meaning I had a long way to go before I could actually leave. Along the way, I encountered the occasional guards, but they didn't put up much of a fight. And later, I encountered this operator, who, considering the fact that they didn't fire a single shot my way, was probably not a real person. And that says a lot about how Delta Force perceives my skill level. They're right, but it still hurts. The rest of the match basically went as follows. Collected some more mid-loot, gave a crocodile the clavicular treatment, killed another enemy operator, and got killed by another enemy operator. So that English tea I collected earlier? Yeah, that's all that came home. 26,000 Technic alloy worth of tea. Hopefully tomorrow goes better. And tomorrow went just about as better as it could have gone. I entered the match with a gear ticket, having just lost all my equipment, and besides being placed several light years from the nearest extraction point once again, this raid was already an improvement compared to last time. After that, I plotted a course to an extraction point, assuming that, because it was so far away, I could probably get in a lot more looting on the way there. That assumption turned out to be correct. Oh my gosh. What is that? But when I actually reached the extract, I ran into a problem. Wait. Yeah, turns out this was a paid extraction point, which I knew, but what I didn't know was that you actually had to have the money on you, not just enough loot to equal that amount. So I had to look for a different extraction point, and of course, I chose the other one that didn't work. It's inactive? Eventually, I picked a sensible extraction option, eliminated and looted another operator on the way over, and finally left the Grove for the first time, earning my biggest payout yet. I guess there's just something lucky about each week's second raid, because before the next match, I had gotten up to 3.7 million Technic alloy. In Raid 3, I yet again spawned in very far from any extraction points, and the loot at my starting location was pretty garbage. But on my way out, Delta Force blessed me, with a bot player holding a sniper rifle. I still got hit once because I expected the person to be shooting from a higher location, but they were actually just hanging out in this little cave. So I collected my spoils and, once again, set a marker on an extraction point ahead of time because they were so far away. Besides a little fun with the sniper, nothing of much importance happened between the start of the game and me finding out that, for the second raid in a row, the random extraction point was inactive. On my way to an actually viable exit, I noticed this player across the river minding their own business, so I decided to have a little fun. I didn't manage to eliminate them, but at least I gave him a good scare. But then I got a good scare myself while trying to extract, because another player started firing in my direction. Luckily, I suffered minimal damage, and after I retreated for a few minutes, the player left, and I was able to extract in peace.
The X in the basket. Welcome back.
Selling my loot from Raid 3 proved decently profitable, bringing me very, very close to 4 million Technic alloy. But after doing that, and after I stopped recording, unfortunately, I discovered a whole new section of the menu screen with a bunch of quests I didn't even realize I completed, meaning that between Raids 3 and 4, I had reached 4.1 million. I also claimed some of these loot box consumables, which luckily I was smart enough to save for the next time I recorded. Anyway, now that I've explained how I got so rich out of nowhere, we can continue with Raid 4. This next match was much calmer than the last three, as I literally didn't encounter a single other player the entire time. I took this as an opportunity to get some quests done in peace, starting in this village near my spawn point. After collecting some decent loot and completing my investigation mission, I once again used the strategy of heading toward extract and looting along the way to ensure I didn't exceed the time limit. While traveling, I came across this substation area which not only had another quest for me to complete, but another player's loot lying on the floor. However, it had been picked over pretty well, so I didn't actually take anything. Before leaving, however, I searched another bird's nest, which for some reason ended up being the most valuable find of the match. But as I extracted once again, the evidence of an intense battle at the substation made me realize something. This was a really boring raid, and the players who are actually taking risks and fighting each other are probably the ones making bank. So I decided that next time, I needed to do something risky, and maybe, just maybe, it would help me secure a major payout. And secure a major payout I did. Though, spoiler alert, only a small portion of that payout was a result of any sort of risk-taking. I returned to the substation, this time right at the start of the game, ready to loot the safe labeled on the map. And that safe, which was actually just a server computer, had a single capacitor in it. So that wasn't disappointing at all. Unfortunately, even though the loot was terrible, I still had to fight off other operators in order to hold on to it. And one of said operators was this guy, who spent several minutes outside running around aimlessly and throwing explosives.
The Havoc train has arrived at the station. Watch out for the guards while you're looting.
But while waiting for them to get their act together and enter the building, I found the CPU, which I guess made the whole ordeal worth it. After dealing with that operator, I began heading toward an extraction point, somewhat dissatisfied with what I'd earned so far. But while passing through a village on the way there, this happened.
Oh! Oh my gosh! Yeah! What is that doing there?
And while that graphics card went straight in my safe box, obviously, in order to keep everything else I had on me, I was going to have to deal with one more enemy operator before extraction. This player caught me off guard by using some sort of stun grenade, which probably would have gotten me killed had there not been cover nearby. But when they threw a second grenade, I was ready and charged forward. As you can see, my rifle ran out of ammo mid-fight, and my second rifle, which I looted earlier, really came in clutch. And after some last-minute searching, I decided to stop pushing my luck and get out, earning even more cash than I did in Raid 2. Unsurprisingly, my auction listings back at base were very lucrative, and by the end of that session, I had over 5 million Technic Alloy. But at the rate I was going, I wasn't sure I'd reach my goal of 15 million by the end of the series. After all, only being a third of the way there while almost halfway through the challenge isn't exactly a good look, and Raid 6 only made things worse. Still riding the high of finding that graphics card last game, I wasn't being very careful during my 6th match. I immediately headed over to another area with a safe, hoping to replicate the success that brought about before. Unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough and another team entered the house first, meaning I spent a lot of time in a different building staying very still and tried to keep my location secret. The consequence of this, of course, was that all the good stuff got taken, so I left the area and went back to the substation again, praying that there would be some loot left. And honestly, that was kinda stupid because my loot was actually worth a decent amount. But greed had corrupted me, and eventually became my downfall. And so, when I went to sell, I earned less than 40,000 Technic Alloy. In an effort to ease my pain, I claimed some challenge rewards, but none of them granted me any cash, just this SMG and some gear tickets. And while this raid still earned me more than my first attempt on Lyoli Grove, the stark contrast between finding a red item in a random spot one game and being obliterated by a G18 the next made it feel way, way worse. For Raid 7, I was tempted to build my own loadout instead of using a gear ticket, because that would clear up some space in my stash. However, I didn't have any armor in my stash except some purple rarity gear the game gives you as a welcome gift. I didn't want to waste those high level items, so I took another gear ticket and headed into the raid. This time around I spawned next to the Havoc Lab, which appeared to have a boss in it, so I avoided that area and instead looted the nearby train station, a different one from the first raid. And while the loot wasn't great, one of the guards had some decent items on him. But when a train actually arrived, just like in the first raid, I fled the scene, because to be honest, I wasn't really sure how dangerous all the guards would be, especially when protecting a safe. While moving towards extraction, yes, already trying to leave, I took out this sniper and stole his gun, and found one other piece of decent loot. But before I could exit safely, I encountered another enemy operator at this extraction point, just like in Raid 5. But to be honest, I didn't really feel like dealing with them, so I finally made proper use of my operator's smokescreen ability and left.
Smokescreen released!
When I got back to base, I sold the loot I had, as well as some of these lemon teas I had lying around for some reason, and brought my total balance to 5.283 million Technic Alloy. But if I want to reach 15 million, I'm going to have to pick up the pace relatively soon. So subscribe to hopefully see it happen, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.